I've always said a man's home ought to be his stronghold, not some battleground, but life doesn't really care what you believe. I bought my place almost a decade back when my knees still held up through Ohio winters, and the idea of retirement didn't feel like chewing gravel. I poured everything I had into this land, every nail, every late night, every drop of sweat, and when I was done, it wasn't just a house, it was a piece of me. It sat on a little more than an acre right outside the gates of a development they called Maple Ridge Estates. You know, the type rows of beige boxes built from the same cookie-cutter neighbors, mowing lawns in perfect sync like it was a ritual. Mine wasn't like that. My cabin stood apart 30 feet outside their border, and I liked it that way. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch where I'd drink coffee at sunrise, a workshop where I shaped oak into something useful, a garden that fed me better than any store. Out back, I had a young orchard, apples, pears, even a stubborn cherry tree and a chicken coop that clucked me awake every morning. Peaceful. Or at least it used to be. I'd been thinking about selling, maybe chasing a quieter life out west in Montana, where the air's clean and the sky goes on forever. So I listed the house, nothing flashy, just some photos, a fair asking price. Within a week, a couple emails came in, but then one afternoon, a silver Lexus rolled up my gravel drive like it didn't know dust existed. Out stepped this woman, late 50s heels, clicking on stone like she owned the ground. Clipboard in hand, lips stretched in a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Mr. Rowe?" she asked like she was calling a defendant in court. "That's me," I said, brushing sawdust off my jeans. "I'm Linda Carson, president of the Maple Ridge HOA. I gave her a nod, nothing more. She flipped open that clipboard and slid a paper toward me like it was gospel. "This is our formal offer to purchase your property at a fair community valuation, $49,000. I laughed. Not politely, straight out laughed. My roof alone had cost more than that. "Ma'am," I said, steady but firm, "this land isn't part of your HOA. Your line ends over there at that stake, and I'm not selling, not to you, and sure as hell not for pocket change." Her smile didn't move, but her eyes flashed like a match struck in the dark. "Mr. Rowe, surely you understand the aesthetic integrity of our community is at stake. Your property is inconsistent with Maple Ridge's design principles." "Exactly," I told her. "That's why I live here." She bristled, closed her folder slow and deliberate, and with her back to me she hissed, "You're not leaving me much choice." Then she drove off gravel, spraying like the road itself owed her clearance. 2 mornings later, I found out what she meant. I'd just finished changing the oil in my truck when 2 sheriff cruisers rolled up my driveway. Doors swung open. One deputy barked my name. "That's me," I answered. "You're under arrest. Turn around. Hands behind your back." "What for?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Assault and criminal threats against Mrs. Linda Carson." I froze. "You've got to be kidding me." But the cuffs clicked cold around my wrists, and suddenly I wasn't a man on his own porch. I was a suspect. At the station, the story was that I shoved Linda off my porch and told her I'd bury her if she came back. She even had a witness, her husband, conveniently. I tried explaining, but the detective barely looked up from his notes. "Her word against yours," he said, and she filed first. That's justice in a small county, I guess. They tossed me in a cell with flickering lights, denied me a phone call, and fed me trays that tasted like cardboard and bleach. Days dragged into weeks. A guy in the next cell name was Darnell leaned through the vent one night and said, "That woman's got pull. Knows folks in the DA's office. You're screwed, man." And for a while I believed him. Then came the break I never expected. They pulled me into a room one morning and showed me footage from a neighbor's security camera, Megan, the quiet woman across the street. Her camera caught the whole assault. There was Linda and her husband on my porch, throwing their arms around like a bad stage play, shouting at nothing. Then me walking out of my garage, calm as a Sunday, telling her, "No. Get off my property. No threats, no contact, nothing." That single video shattered their case. Charges dropped, 20 days of my life gone. Megan had driven back from visiting family, checked her footage, and marched it to the sheriff herself. She said she knew I wasn't that man. She barely knew me, but she knew enough. That cut deeper than the arrest itself, that someone still cared about the truth. But I wasn't done. I called up an old friend, Marcus Boyd, a vet turned civil rights attorney. When I told him everything, he chuckled darkly. "Sounds like you've been bulldozed by a paper war. Let's push back." Within a week, Marcus filed suits against Linda and her husband for defamation and malicious prosecution against the HOA for conspiracy and against the sheriff's office for misconduct. A private investigator dug through Maple Ridge's past and uncovered a trail of intimidation seniors bullied into selling cheap families, fined into bankruptcy over mailbox heights and lawn ornaments, all leading to properties snatched by the HOA or developers tied to it. Then came the bombshell, an anonymous flash drive mailed straight to Marcus's office. Inside emails between Linda and a lieutenant in the sheriff's department talking about expedited enforcement and non-cooperative owners. They doctored zoning maps to make it look like my land overlapped their community. But Marcus pulled county records. My property had always been clean. When trial came, I walked in wearing my old flannel, not some stiff suit. That courthouse was packed, reporters, neighbors, even folks from the HOA board shifting nervously in their seats. Linda sat across the aisle, still smug but thinner, brittle. The prosecution opened with their usual bluster, but Marcus dismantled it piece by piece. He played Megan's footage on the big screen. The jury saw Linda waving her arms like a bad actress, her husband pointing like a silent film villain, me standing there calm as daylight. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, "this is the full extent of the violence my client is accused of." The room went dead quiet. When Megan testified, she didn't cry or dramatize. She just told them what she saw, what she knew. Said I'd never raised my voice in all the years we were neighbors. Said she came forward because right is right. And I'll tell you, when she stepped down, I could have hugged her in front of everyone. The verdict hit like a hammer. Linda guilty on all counts, filing false reports, falsifying documents, attempted fraud conspiracy. 12 years. Her husband guilty of perjury and conspiracy. 7 years. The Maple Ridge HOA dissolved their assets, frozen under federal investigation. Me. I walked out with my name cleared and 900 grand in damages. Enough to breathe again. But the real victory. Watching Linda get led away in cuffs. No clipboard. No Lexus. No power. Just silence. I sold the house soon after to a young couple who loved the garden as much as I did. Left them my old tools and a note under the sink that read, "This land is yours. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Then I headed north, finally answering Montana's call. Funny thing, Megan showed up not long after. Said she sold her place, was tired of fake smiles. Brought a six-pack, stood by my half-built cabin, and asked if she could stick around a while. We sat on the tailgate looking at the mountains, not saying much, but somehow saying everything. A year later, we married on the porch we built together. Nothing fancy, just a justice of the peace, a couple neighbors, and a stray dog who wandered in and never left. I hung a sign on the driveway made from old barnwood bold letters, painted by hand, HOA Free Zone Forever. Now every so often, a delivery driver reads it, chuckles, maybe shakes his head, but I just smile. They don't know the story behind it, and that's fine. The people who matter already do. So I'll leave you with this. What would you have done in my shoes? Walked away? Fought back? Or maybe something in between? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take on what justice really looks like when power and community collide.